And I try and conduct this class more or less as a history class, quite frankly, because I can't teach you. I can try, but I really can't teach you to, love the literature and be inspired by it and all that stuff. That's really not my job. That's the job of the books themselves. And to a degree, I can't really do that. What I can do is give you some hints as to how you might approach some of this reading. And then maybe if you try some of my little tactics, little strategies, techniques, whatever you want to call them, of how to approach something, then you might find my way dumb or unsatisfactory in some way or other. And, well, that's fine. Because then you're developing your own idea of how to read. Then you're developing your own system of strategies. You have found one way that doesn't quite work for you, but now you can go for something else. And for those of you, sorry, I have a little bit of a frog going on in my throat here. For those of you who say, oh God, an English class, I don't want to do this. I hated them in high school. And, I just want to get this to get my credits and get my requirements in and get on with my life and get a job and never have to read anything again. Okay, I understand that. I hated English class in high school too. I hate English classes in high school especially, quite frankly. But what I am proposing we launch into is, in my estimation, and you can disagree if you want, but consider it, in my estimation, the most important class you will have in your college career. Now, for those of you who are going into a business field or a technical field or some such thing, accounting, finance, management, these are all fairly set things, especially something like, quite frankly, accounting, where it's very, very, focused, limited, factual. The numbers add up. This is how you add up the numbers. These are the things you have to consider. There are formulas to memorize. There are structures. It's very focused. And that's fine. My contention is that reading is not necessarily about getting a vision of beauty in the world, or, getting to feel what the characters are going through, or anything like that. I really don't care about any of the characters, quite frankly. I don't care about anybody else other than me, quite frankly. When I read, I care about other people. But when I'm reading, I don't really care about the characters. For your purposes, you don't need to care about the characters either. Whether or not you are emotionally attached to anything is almost irrelevant to me. What I care about, and what I suggest you care about, is the act of reading, which is nothing more than confronting a field of information that is operating perhaps under its own rules, or perhaps under a set of prescribed familiar rules, but doing it in its own way. And when you read, you come up against that and you have to figure it out. It's a puzzle to solve. It's a problem. That is the most important skill of the 21st century. Think about it. In the so-called information age, Nobody has to know anything. Even accounting, quite frankly. There are plenty of programs you just do data entry with. You don't have to know anything. If there is something you need to know, you Google it, and there's the answer. Facts, data, simple stuff. But in everyone's career, and it usually starts pretty early, just a few months after you, start any new job, there's going to be a time when your boss comes up to you and says, and this will probably happen at 4:45 on a Friday, quite frankly, your boss will come up to you and say, this just came in, this file, this box, this case, this account, this whatever, this just came in. I don't have time to look at it right now. Do me a favor. You look through it and give me a synopsis on Monday morning, 9 a.m. in the conference room, and we're going to have the rest of the team assembled. And then this case, this file, this whatever, you realize there's not just like 3 papers, paper clipped together, but perhaps boxes of papers, or an electronic file that just absolutely blows up your laptop when you try and download it. And you have to sift through all of this information that maybe you're seeing for the very first time. And it's scary. But if you have some experience of confronting something completely foreign, something completely confusing, something completely new, if you have some experience of picking your way through it and finding patterns, finding the internal logic of whatever you're reading, if you have some experience of that, you are better off. You can approach the job like a manager. And that's what that test will be for your boss. Because everybody's first job, your degree will get you your first job, quite frankly. Okay, somebody's going to look at your resume. All right, Baruch, good program, good GPA on there, good major. You have all the requisite skills. Fine. Put that one aside. Fine. Come on in. We'll show you around. You pick a health plan. And then we're going to show you to that cubicle down at the end of the row. And you're going to get there in that cubicle and yay, put out some little tchotchkes and feel cool. But if you ever want to crack out of that cubicle, you have to show an ability to rise above the basic limits of that job. You have to show an ability to not just see what is on the page in front of you and enter it into a database somewhere. You need to show an ability to analyze and to communicate that analysis, because that Monday morning conference room presentation will be excruciating if you don't know how to distill what you have read over that weekend, in that file, in that box, in that room full of boxes, to distill and show a little focus, to show an ability to weed out what is insignificant, to find what is really going on within that field of information, to find the opportunity, to find the meaning. That's what your boss needs. Any monkey can sit in a cubicle at the end of the row. But if you want to get to the corner office, that's where the skills of analysis and communication come in. And that's what we do here. From the beginning of time, literature has been a part of education as we know it. And not because anybody really thought it was worth a damn to know, you know, oh, my love is like a red, red rose who knew something, something in bloom or whatever. But the process, the methodical thinking that goes into analyzing something and communicating that analysis, that is the kind of methodical thinking that every employer needs. That's what we're doing here. So if you're confused about that, if you're worried that it's going to be like high school, I'm here to say I'm going to try like crazy not to. I understand very well who you are as students. You're all individuals, and I hope to get to know you, but every semester I get my course roster and I see finance major, economics major, management major, accounting major, boom, 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 boom. I run this class for that demographic. I run this class for people who might not even want to read, might hate reading. That's fine. I'm here to try and show you the skills it takes to get into a piece of reading and how that skill can benefit you in your professional life. I will come back to this again and again and again. Your professional life will benefit immeasurably from what we do here, and that is why this is the most important class you will take here. If at the end of the class you disagree, that's fine. Argue against me if you want. We can have that little debate. Could be fun. But you need to go through the information and build your case first. Because otherwise you're just, nope, can't be. Okay. But by offering a knee-jerk reaction like that, you're actually telling me an awful lot about you. And if I am your boss and I see that you are somebody who just makes rash judgments without all the evidence, well, enjoy that cubicle. I hate to put it in crass terms like that, but I am trying to put aside any concern you might have about this being a case where you're expected to emote, where you're expected to, you know, go on and on about beauty and all of that. I don't care. I am coming at this in a very simple way. And I'm hoping that you can meet me on that ground and we can have some fun with that. Because the other thing that literature is, besides a way of training your mind to analyze and communicate, is literature is fun. And I hope to inspire a little bit of that. I can't make that be a goal of this class because that is an intangible quality. I can't make you love reading. But I hope to demonstrate that it can be fun. And I think it is. Come on along. Let's give it a shot. Anyway, this course presents a global approach to literature by introducing a variety of narrative, lyric, and dramatic forms representative of different cultures and historical periods from the 17th through the 21st centuries. Every class studies a broad range of narratives. Discussions involve both close reading and selected texts and comparison of the values of the text promote. I didn't write that. That was written by somebody on a syllabus well before I got here, and I just copied and pasted that, but I'm going to go with that. That's a pretty good description of what this class is. Underneath that, on the syllabus, you will see the required text. The Norton Anthology of World Edition of World Literature, 4th edition. We're doing this one, but it is, I will point out, 3 volumes. This is 3, that's 1, this is 2. They're actually labeled D, E, and F, for those of you fond of alphabetical calculation. And a word about the book. I do not require anyone to prove to me that they have bought the book, but it is very prudent of you to do so. I recognize it is not cheap. New, these go for like $90 or something like that. You can find various, a range of costs if you're buying them used. Everything we are reading can be found in other places. Particularly if it was written originally in English and is older than 100 years, or technically about 75 years, you can find them online somewhere. But if it wasn't written in English, then we're probably reading a translation in here, and those are going to be caught up in the copyright limit of about 75 years. And that can be a little confusing to shuffle through. You can find all of this stuff at a public library, probably. Some of it is going to be in the college library. There are ways of tracking it down. Maybe somebody scanned every page of this series of books into a PDF and posted it online. I highly doubt that they did, because we're talking a lot of pages. And even if somebody did go through that, the good folks at Norton would probably contact them and say, if you don't take that down, we're going to sue you. And, lawyers make a lot of money to do this, so publishers are going to be very active in that. So if you're hoping to get out of this without buying a single book, you are setting yourself up for just a lot of headaches. How many individual books are you going to find in a library and juggle through? That's going to be a problem. And at the end of the semester, the final exam, is going to be comprehensive, meaning it's going to cover not everything we read, but an awful lot from the periods throughout the class. And so if you check out a book from the public library this week and you have to return it, although most public libraries aren't even charging overdue fees, then you're going to be out of luck at the end of the semester. So if you haven't gotten the book already, you are way behind, and I suggest you get cracking with that, because delivery is not always a speedy process. If you are having problems, let me know, and maybe there's something I can do about it, but it's kind of on you. The Blackboard site went live, more than a week and a half ago, with the syllabus on it. This had that on there. I believe when you signed up for the class, it should have been on CUNY first. So the book is the book. There's no getting out of it. Do your best with that, quite frankly. Academic honesty. This is something I take seriously. You know what cheating is. We all know what cheating is. If you feel yourself looking over your shoulder when you're doing something, you're cheating. If you try and submit any work that you did not write yourself, you are really rolling the dice on getting an F. If I suspect that you are cheating, that's not good for you. Because remember those soft points I mentioned where I start to assess whether or not somebody is, doing their best. That will cut the other way if I think you are cheating. Obviously, in a class like this, with the internet and AI being what it is, the opportunities are out there, and I am aware of this. What I would say about that is the cliche of you're only cheating yourself, quite frankly. And I know that sounds stupid and you're going to blow that one off. But the writing requirements for this class are really not that onerous. And we'll go over those. The writing requirements are not that difficult. And they are where you start to train your ability to focus and communicate your understanding of what you've read. That's where you stand in the conference room on Monday morning and start to talk to people about this is what I think this field of information is about. It's not that difficult. Trying to get AI to do it for you is probably more difficult. And if I suspect that something was written by not you, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that it was. So, word to the wise. Don't submit anything that you did not write yourself. Accommodation Services, a number of things for students with disabilities. If you have a problem, if you have anything you need to send me from the office saying you need extra time for an exam or whatever, I'll try and work with that. Video conferencing policies, I spoke about that a little bit before. Course requirements, this is what everybody really cares about, quite frankly. Regular attendance, more than 2 absences may result in a lower grade. If you're going to be absent for an extended period of time, I appreciate a note if you're going to be absent for even a single day. I appreciate a short email, say, hey, I'm just not feeling well today. I'm not going to make it. Okay, great. Let me know. It doesn't excuse the absence necessarily, but, it lets me in on it. And I feel like I'm more, you're not just blowing me off. I feel more invested in you. And I feel bad if you're sick, especially. But if you're going to be absent for, more than one day, definitely let me know that. I've had students have problems, things come up, and I try and accommodate them as best I can. I had one student last spring who, in February, the first month of school, she was going off to Army training, and she was going to be gone serving our country for like 4 weeks. So I worked with her, like, okay, this is how we can get around that, and we will accommodate that. Let me know these things. And sometimes, you're just going to be going through a rough patch for mental, emotional, or health reasons or whatever. Let me in on that too. You don't have to go, I don't need to know anything particularly personal. But include me in that process, and I can try and help you work through it as best can as it pertains to this class. Discussion participation. The more you talk, the better I like you. The more you talk, the better your grade will be. I don't like talking this much. If you talk, I view it as a personal favor to me. If you ask a question, if you offer an analysis, you know what I think this piece of writing was about. If you offer me that, then I feel better. Then I feel like, okay, it wasn't just me talking. I have proof of life out there in the world. And you also flag yourself to me. You personalize yourself to me. So that participation is really, really important. Midterm and final exams, we'll talk about those a little bit more in a minute. 750 word paper. Yes, that is not a typo. 750 words. I don't want to know how many adjectives you know. I don't want to know how many times you can put a comma in a sentence. I don't want to know how flabby you can make something. I want to the point. I don't expect anybody to have brilliant, florid, flowing thoughts about anything. I will go over very, very specifically what I expect in an essay. And I gotta tell you, my specifications are not something that AI will keep up with. I'm not bragging, but AI doesn't do specific very well. I will insist on specifics. Short writing assignments. Short writing assignments are generally just Blackboard. Every class will have a short reading. If you go into Blackboard, every day is listed in there. There is reading for that day. Have it done before the class begins, certainly, and post a reaction to it according to a prompt that I include in there. Have that in there, again, preferably by midnight before the next day's class. That gives me a little time to survey it. Now, I consider these homeworks. They are not individually graded. I just want you an opportunity to react to the reading, to take a first stab at what the hell was that I just read, to just butt your head up against the wall and just, kind of let me in on your thought process, your reaction to what you're reading. What can you make of it on a first blush? And I don't expect anybody to come at this with particularly, informed, educated, expert opinions or literary analysis of a high level on any way. No. What I want is a simple description, largely a simple description of what this reading did to you. What is your reaction? What does the literature itself do? And how do you think it does that? What buttons is it pushing in you that you notice? The easiest thing in the world is to just turn pages and read words, and they just sort of go in. But every now and then you're going to trip on something and say, huh? What? I wasn't expecting that. What the hell is going on there? Good literature does that, quite frankly. You can write about that in Blackboard. You can just monitor your own reactions as you're going through them. It's like, wow, I'm getting bored as I'm reading this part. But suddenly, I feel myself a little intrigued by this one part. And this other part, he says this, and like, ooh, something's going on there. Document this. Document when you feel yourself getting pushed and pulled by the words on the page. Because those reactions are deliberate. And you are absolutely expert enough to interpret that. Have some faith in yourself for that. I'm just going to scan through here. Discussion participation. Expect to be called on. Each class meeting will jumpstart a general discussion where we all add our interpretation of the literary work at hand. These discussions will be based on the literature with room for tangents allowed, so familiarity with the reading is expected. This will be your opportunity to stand out. Don't wait to be called on. Raise your hand and offer your thoughts. Anyone called on and doesn't respond and who doesn't have their Zoom camera turned on will be marked absent regardless of whether or not they are logged in. What I said before, that's the opportunity cost of a Zoom class. Blackboard participations, I talked about that. The grading is important. I'm not going to grade individual Blackboard posts. At the end of the semester, Well, throughout the class, I like having the Blackboard stuff in by the midnight before class. Please don't wait to see what I say about something. Feel free in Blackboard to just think out loud and say, I don't know what that was about. But try and develop that thought and say, well, what was confusing? And, give it a little effort. It doesn't have to be long, but it should be like, a short paragraph. And I will have lots to say about what a paragraph is expected to contain. But I like to have that done by midnight the night before, so I can sort of go through it and okay, this is a good point. This is something that gave some problems. Why don't I can address this or whatever. And I will do that throughout the class. And then at the end of the semester, when I am calculating grades, I go through and I make a largely qualitative assessment where I see, quantitative in who is posting regularly, and if you miss one or two, it's fine. These things happen. If you miss a bunch, that's not great. If you miss all of them, there's a good chance you're going to tank the class. But also then I go through and say, well, this person was really just half-assing it. One or two sentences, and most of them are late, and don't do that. Because then then in those final days of the semester, when I am trying to calculate grades for everybody, the final impression you're making on me is that, you just didn't care enough. You don't want that. That will color the final grade. Keep up with those. The Blackboard postings are also a great way of taking notes for yourself, because at the end of the semester, and we'll get to this in a second, the end of the semester there will be a cumulative final exam where you'll be expected to write about readings from the beginning of the semester. And it's hard to remember that stuff. And you won't have time to go back and reread everything, I'm assuming. So, good notes pasted to Blackboard can help jog your memory a little bit. Midterm and final exams. Exams will be essays done during scheduled class times. Topics will be drawn from lectures, discussions, and Blackboard comments. I will be posting suggested term paper topics. Actually, I might already have put them on Blackboard. And the final exams the midterm and final exams will be generally in that same vein. These are all thematic topics, and I will go into great detail as to how to write a thematic essay and not a literature essay. I don't want to read a literature essay. I'm sure you don't want to write one. But if you're writing about themes, about broader ideas, and using the literature to support those ideas, to support your assessment, your interpretation of a theme, then we have something to work with. Final paper, each student is expected to submit a final paper of at least 750 words. I chose that number for a reason. I want a focused expression of your thoughts, not a florid, flowery dance through your stream of consciousness. I don't really care. Essay scope, the term paper and the final exam will be comprehensive for the entire course. This means that each essay will be expected to reference at least one work of literature we've read in class from each of the 3 volumes of the anthology. The midterm exam will be comprehensive for the work read by that point in the semester. I don't expect anybody to read too far ahead. The midterm exam comes up in about 2 months, and it will cover everything that we have read up until that point. The final exam will come up a month and a half, 2 months after that, and we'll cover everything we have read from the first day until the last day, or at least selections thereof. If you offer up selections of reading that you have done that is not on the list, that's good context, but it has no point value. You're making another point, perhaps. You're supporting your central argument, and I can respect that, but it doesn't necessarily count. If you want to reference something in addition to what we have already read in class, that's fine. That is good context, and I will be very impressed with that, and that'll probably be worth a few extra points here or there. But it really doesn't have any concrete value on its own. So if you read a book in high school that you think you can eke out a paper on or an essay on, you don't. Unless you read one of the books that's on the syllabus for this semester in high school, your high school reading is irrelevant. So bear that in mind. I will repeat that many times between now and the end of the semester, I'm sure, because I always do. But that's the rule. Assessment. Participation, short assignments, and attendance, 25%. Midterm exam, 25%. Final exam, 25%. Final paper, 25%. It's fairly simple math. I am not an accountant. I don't do numbers well. I like to keep things fairly simple. If you want to know at any point how your grades are, well, this is it. I'm happy to have an individual conversation with any of you at any time, pretty much. I have office hours posted on the syllabus that I don't even know what they are offhand because I don't really stick to them. Send me an email and we'll work out a private time that works for you, that's more convenient or mutually convenient. And we can go through stuff if you're having concerns. But this is the grading rubric. Now, what this means is participation, short assignments, and attendance. You're in control of that. But you won't have any hard data beyond whether or not you are making an earnest Blackboard contribution every class, whether or not you are talking in class, whether or not you are attending every class. You know all of that information, so don't ask me for it. Midterm exam, you will get those grades within a day or two after you take the exam. That will come in about 2 months, and that's the first hard grade you will get. The final exam will come at the end of the semester, and by then it will be too late to do anything else. So you got to have that in. The final paper will be due and hopefully graded and returned to you by the time you get to the final exam. So that'll give you a little bit of a sense. I can talk about this all you want. If you want to meet individually or if you want to shoot me an email, I can give you a basic rundown. But this is what the grading system is, and I hope you can. I hope you don't get surprised at the end of the semester if it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. Again, everybody starts with an A in my book. It's kind of up to you to lose it. All written work is to be handed in on time and I'm sorry about the noise in the background, outdoors. All written work is to be handed in on time and typed in grammatically correct English, observing all proper and stated rules for composition. Grading will be a combination of quantitative and qualitative assessment. We can discuss your individual performance at any time throughout the semester. That second part, I have made that point a number of times. But all written work is to be handed in on time, very important. Blackboard stuff on time, certainly paper drafts on time. In grammatically correct English, observing all proper and stated rules for composition. Okay, there's a lot there. If English is not your first language, I will understand that even more if you talk in class. If you come to me at the end of the semester and say, yeah, but I don't really, grammar isn't my thing, but I've never heard your voice before, it's not a compelling case. The drafting process of the papers is something I take very, very seriously. There is a rough draft required, but not graded. Rough drafts will come just before the midterm exam. And I will go over that in more detail later. The drafting process is something I take seriously. I encourage multiple drafts. Nobody has to write more than one draft. If you don't write one rough draft and submit one rough draft before the final draft, I will not read your final draft. So you kind of do have to do that, even though it's not graded. If you write more than one rough draft, you submit it to me, you email it to me, and I will give you some comments. I will suggest, this kind of worked, or this wasn't so great, or why don't you try this? And then you take those suggestions, you rewrite a little, and you send it back to me, and I will do the exact same thing. Now this part's a little bit loose, and this part could use a little boning up, and this part, I don't know, and oh, by the way, here's how you use a semicolon. I will go into some excruciating detail about stuff like that. Essentially, for the second half of this class, from the time the rough draft is due until the end of the semester, I will work for you as a copy editor. I will give you valuable suggestions as to what you want to fix before you submit it, based on my somewhat experienced understanding of how the professor grades, because that's me. I will tell you exactly what I'm looking for, throughout the drafting process, and help you get to that point, taking you by the hand and dragging you through the revision and rewriting process, which is the only process that really matters. Every first draft you write is crap. Just laying it out there. Every first draft you write is garbage. Understand that. Burn that into your head, because that will be the same case when you start submitting stuff for your professional life. If you don't look it over when you're done, if you don't say, well, okay, I just sat down the night before and hammered this out. If you don't take a hard look at that, an objective look at that, a cold look at that, where you approach your own writing as a new field of information to be analyzed. What's it doing? How is it doing that? Could it do it better? Again, if you don't do that, cubicle. Your career is your business. If you want to stay in that cubicle, fan-damn-tastic. If you aspire to something more, think about it. When it comes to grammar, I expect it to be offered up as professionally as possible. But I will forgive an awful lot if I know that you are trying, and I know that grammar is not something that is particularly convenient for you. English grammar, at least, and English is a mutt language. I will help you with grammar and punctuation and little stylistic tips if we go through the drafting process and the revising process, the rewriting process together. Or you could just say, nah, this is good enough. I don't need that input. Okay. But at the end of the semester, when I am reading all of these papers, when I am reading these exams, and I'm seeing spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes and all those little squiggly lines that show up on a document these days that I know are popping up in some form on when you're writing, and if you're submitting me a document with those little underlines there, well, that just tells me you don't care. That just tells me that you think it's my job to get over that, to figure out what you meant. Okay. That's a risky attitude to take into a professional environment. Your job is to make your ideas as clear as possible. And if you have a lot of, garbage up there, you can expect your boss to judge you on that because your ideas won't be clear. I can't tell you how many times I have sat through a PowerPoint presentation where at the end of it, all I could focus on was, yeah, but they had that word that was a typo or something like that. That's my takeaway. But if you zero those out through careful editing and revision and rewriting as you're going, typo's not there. The focus isn't on how you say what you say. It's only on your ideas, on what you say. That's a win for you. So be very careful with rewriting and take it seriously. And submit it with as clean an expression of grammar as you can. And if you include me on the process, I will help you get there. I'm an English professor. That's what I do. I used to be an editor, too, of sorts. So, I'm reasonably good at that. And I also tend to work fast because I used to work in television. Okay. On the reading list, you will see a variety of titles next to dates. Some of these titles might be familiar to you. Some of them might not be. Some of them are not in the book. I post in occasional other short pieces from let's say the internet somewhere. Usually stuff that doesn't have to be translated. Again, that is not copyright protected if possible. And we're going to go through these very methodically. I try and space out the reading in a comfortable fashion, so that every night you're going to have, or for every class you're going to have some reading to do. This will start off kind of light and will escalate accordingly, and I hope we can come to some comfort level with that. And if you fall behind in the reading, shoot me an email, let me know, say, I'm having some trouble, I'm catching up. I'll understand. But you don't want to fall too far behind, because as you can see, it will be difficult to catch up. If you take a few weeks off of reading, that's an awful lot to catch up on. And it will become very apparent that you're not doing it. So you don't want to fall behind. Please keep up to this schedule. Every class, every week, you will have a reading assignment listed in Blackboard, listed in pages, or in short clips, and I encourage you to follow those very, very directly. The more we stay on pace, the better it will turn out for you. I don't want to fall behind. If you start to fall behind, we can try and meet individually to get you caught up. but that will be that is not a viable strategy for the whole class. At the end of the semester, when I am going through an awful lot of final drafts or late rough drafts on papers, and everything gets busy, and you say, "Oh, I just need some help getting through all of this," I'm not going to have the time. So, look at this schedule very carefully, and you can start to see where all the problems are going to arise. The dates for the major assignments are on there. The rough draft of the paper, the final draft of the paper, the midterm exam and the final exam. Midterm exam and final exam will be on these dates at approximate class times. The midterm exam will be on the class during the regular class time. I will send you a prompt. You do it and you send it back to me. The final exam will be at a time roughly at this time, but filtered through the scheduling for Baruch, and we'll try and make that happen. If you need extra time to complete any of those, we can work all that out too. The general gist of this class is that I think reading is fun, and I think reading is useful. That's what I'm going to try and impart. I want you to feel, inspired and amused and profoundly moved by all this stuff we're going to go through. But I understand if you're not. You guys are all busy. Some of you are still fairly young, and a lot of this stuff is, not difficult to get through, but it might be speaking to you better at a later time in life. So all that is just, if you come away from this class with a sense of the joy that can be had by just cracking open a book, or the meaning that comes through, that sense of community with humanity at large, that's terrific. But I will return again and again and again to a professional goal in this, which is we're going to crack open these things, read through them, and whatever we get out is what we get out. And I'm going to stick with that.